In this video, I'm going to show you how to do a classic waistband for the top of your skirt or pants. And you'll see that it has a folded edge here at the top with a top stitch down here at the bottom. And it's usually meant for garments that have a zipper closure, which I have right here. And one side will overlap, so you can do a fastener closure of your choice, either a button, a hook and eye, or any other type of closure that you have. On the inside here, it's been hand sewed close, so it gives it a nice, clean, finished look to your garment. So let's get started. So in order to make your waistband, you're going to have one pattern piece that's going to come with your pattern. And this is one that I made myself because I'm making my own skirt. And regardless of the size, mine is small, but regardless of the size you're making, you're going to follow these same basic steps. First, you're going to cut out one in your fabric, and then you're going to cut out one in your interfacing. So your pattern will tell you which size interfacing or which weight interfacing to use. I'm just using a lightweight for mine. But this is what you want to make sure. We want to make sure that the interfacing matches up to our fabric piece. So this is going the same size or the same direction as this, and even though it looks symmetrical, these marks aren't actually symmetrical. It's a little bit longer on one end than it is on the other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that my interfacing has the fusible side down. So the side with the bubble is facing down towards the table, and the soft side is facing up towards me. So I have my pattern piece the same way I have my fabric, and this is the wrong side of my fabric. I'm just going to take it and I'm going to place it onto my interfacing, and now I'm going to cut it out. Now also the thing about the interfacing is you typically want to make it a little bit smaller than your fabric piece because you're going to have a seam allowance here, and you don't really need your interfacing on the seam allowance. So once you cut it out, you can cut it out to make it a little bit smaller. So I'm just going to go ahead and pin this and cut it out, but once I'm done with it, I should just be able to lift it up and stick it right onto my piece, my waistband piece right here, and it should fit perfectly. So I'm going to go ahead and pin this and cut it out, and then we'll move on to applying the interfacing to our waistband. So I have my waistband here. Here's the fabric wrong side up, and here's my interfacing. So you'll feel one side has the bubbles. That is the fusible part, and that goes face down on the wrong side of my waistband here. And you'll see I made it a little bit shorter than the actual waistband fabric. So it fits pretty good. And then I'm going to get my damp cloth, carefully lay it over my piece, get a little bit more damp, and with a very hot iron, or depending on the type of fabric you're doing. And if you're doing a synthetic fabric, then you don't have to have the iron as hot, but I'm doing a cotton, so I want a hot iron, and I'm going to carefully lift it up and go on the next piece. Okay, and now my interface is applied to my fabric, and then we can start working on attaching it to our skirt or pants or whatever you need a waistband for. So what we're going to do first though is we're going to fold over the edge, the seam allowance of whatever your project is. So for mine's a half edge, and I'm only going to do it on one side, and the way you figure out what side it is one side from, I have my first notch here, so from the notch to the edge of the fabric should be shorter on one side. So I'm just going to measure this side. And your pattern piece could indicate which side that's going to be. So that's a 3 3/4, and then I'm going to measure from this side to this edge of this notch, and this is about 4 1/2. So this is the shorter side, and the reason we're folding it is because this is going to be the edge of one side of our waistband. And we want it to have a nice clean edge of a fold here instead of just leaving it like this and then you're going to have a rough edge. The other side is longer because this is the side that's going to overlap with this side of the waistband, so you can apply your fastener like a button or a hook and eye or something like that. So once I have this folded, my seam allowance length for me is 1/2 inch. I'm then going to iron it. Like that. So now we're going to pin one edge of our waistband to the top edge of our garment. So I'm working on a skirt right here, so it's going to go right along this edge. And the side that's going to go up on the edge is the side that has the notches, because that's going to match up with certain points along the edge of your garment here. Now I have my side with the fold, and that's going to match up with one side here. And I'm doing it on the left side of the garment, or I guess it would be my right side. Now that just means it's going to overlap the other side of the waistband over on this side, and a lot of garments I think actually go on this side, but I'm left-handed, so I always do everything backwards. It doesn't really matter. You're making your own clothes, you could break the rules. The main point is that your notches match up. So you have your center notch, and it should match up with your center of your skirt. I drew my little notch here at the center. So I'm going to pin that. Okay. And then my other notch here is going to match up with the side seam of my skirt. So I'm going to pin that area. And the other notch matches up with the other side seam. So I'm going to find my side seam here, and I'm going to put my notch here. Here's the other edge of my skirt and the other edge. So you see here this overlaps, which is fine because we want it to overlap since we need it to overlap with this other side here. So now I'm just going to finish pinning this, and then what we're going to do is we're going to do our seam allowance to sew the top edge of this waistband and my garment. So I'm ready to sew my waistband to my skirt now, and you'll see that my folded side is lining up with the edge of my zipper, and you always want to sew your waistband with the zipper opened. So I'm just going to start sewing at the recommended seam allowance of your pattern. Don't forget to back stitch. And then once this is sewn on, you're going to press it by the waistband being folded out and your seam here, your seam allowance, being folded up towards the top of the waistband. Because after that point, we're going to top stitch it, and this part will be tucked into the inside of the waistband when the waistband is finished. So from the inside of the skirt, it'll look fairly neat. So here's my waistband, which has been sewn to the top of my skirt. And now what you're going to do is, see, here's the edge of my seam allowance. I'm going to press it up towards my waistband like that. So on this side, it's going to be nice and smooth, and all the seam allowance is going to be pressed towards this way. And what we're going to do is we're going to top stitch right along the edge of the waistband here on the waistband side in order to keep all this facing up towards this, because once we fold this over, that seam allowance will then be covered by your waistband. So I'm going to go ahead, take it to my iron, press it, and then I'm going to take it to the machine so we can go ahead and do the top stitch. So now I'm going to sew my top stitch right along this edge, right along here. And it's all been pressed, so it should be lying flatly. You could do a couple back stitches there. And you want to stay as close as you can to the edge without going over. And then the next step is we're going to start pressing our other raw edge here under, like that. Let me finish this top stitch and then we'll get to that point. So I finished my top stitch. Here it is right here. And here's the long part that extends past the zipper. I also top stitch right along here. So you're going to extend all the way to the edge. So now that that's done, the next part is, like I said before, you're going to take this raw edge right here and you're going to fold it under. See how that's nice and clean on the top there, on the right side? On the wrong side, you see it's been folded over. And you're going to want to consult your pattern directions to see what they want, but I usually do 1/4 inch. So that's been folded under 1/4 inch, and then you're going to press it. So that's already been pressed. The next step here is we're going to work right here on this extended edge. I'm going to fold this waistband in half. So this is still staying folded, and I'm going to meet folded edge to my folded edge now, like that. And I'm going to put a pin there because I'm going to stitch right along here. I'm going to stitch 1/4 inch, but you want to check your pattern again to see what they say, because I just want to finish this raw edge, and then once I stitch that, I'm just able to, I could trim that and then flip it right side out, and this will all be tucked under, and it'll look like this. So at that point, we're almost done with our waistband. So again, you're going to fold the waistband in half, right side to right side, so the folds meet. I'm going to pin that, and then I'm going to do just a quick stitch right along the edge at my 1/4 inch mark. So I'm going ahead and I'm going to stitch right along this line at the 1/4 inch mark. Let me remove my pin here. And for me, because my waistband isn't very big, it doesn't take very long at all. Okay, so I'm just going to take this out of here. And depending on how big your waistband is, you're going to want to trim your seam allowance here. So it's 1/4 inch, mine is already there, but you're also going to want to clip this corner right here without clipping your stitch, because we're going to turn this now right side out. I'm going to fix it, but roughly that's how it's going to be. Obviously you want your line to be straight, while mine's still kind of crooked and in there, so I'm going to play with that. But as soon as you do that, you're going to see how it kind of folds in half again. So you're then going to want to press your waistband, so wrong side to wrong side, so this edge right here of your waistband is going to line up right at your seam right here that you did for your top stitch. So you're going to go ahead and just kind of fold that in half, you can pin it, and then you're going to press right at the top of your waistband so you have a nice clean fold here, because then the next step is we're going to hand sew this all closed. So I'm going to show you how to do that next after I fix my little edge here, and then I press this. So my waistband has now been folded in half. This edge of the fold here is meeting up with our seam that we did, or stitching that we did, attaching the waistband to the top of our garment here. And I went ahead and pinned it and pressed it. The next step now is we're going to do a slip stitch. So we're going to attach from the inner fold of the waistband here to the extra seam allowance that's sticking out. So you're never actually going through to the other side of the fabric. When you look at the right side of the skirt or your pants, the waistband, when you're finished, you should only see your top stitching. So it's basically going to be an invisible stitch closing this off and hiding all our seam allowances here on the inside of the waistband. So we're going to start here at the edge where we have the overlap of the waistband, and you're going to go all the way across to this edge, but then you're also going to go up the side here because this is still open from when we just folded it over. So you just continue the slip stitch from this corner up to this edge, and then you're done with doing that part of the waistband. So we're going to get closer so I can show you how to do the slip stitch. So to do the slip stitch, I'm going to start with a threaded knotted needle, and I'm going to start right here on the inside, grabbing my seam allowance here and a little bit of my fabric from this side, trying to stay on the inside part of the fold, and then tuck my knot inside there. There we go. Alright, so I'm on this side. Now I'm going to grab a little bit on the inside fold on the opposite side. and then very gently pull it. Now this one's going to be hard because we have this fabric that's right in the middle here. So now I'm going to the opposite side. Okay, gently pull it. And you'll see it slightly start to close. Once I get to this part where I don't have the seam allowance anymore, this should close all the way. So now I'm grabbing the other side, and I'm just basically zigzagging between the two sides here. See, that closes. And so I'm taking a little bit of this side, then this side, then this side, and this side. And I'm going to go all along the length of my waistband. Once I get to the part where my garment is actually attached to the waistband, it actually becomes a little bit easier. So I finished hand sewing my waistband here, and you'll see now that I have this overlaps with this edge of my waistband. So at this point it's a closure of your choosing. Sometimes they ask for a button, so you would do the buttonhole on the part that overlaps, and then the button would go on this side here. Or you can do a hook and eye. So you'd sew the hook and eye at the edge and then sew one here, and it would hook together. This is just to keep the waistband closed after you zip up your zipper. But that's it. That's the completed waistband, and that's all you need to do.